Hatfield, a level 4 centered riding instructor from Long Island, New York, USA. Today my topic is changing the way you think to change the way you ride. To me, this is the essence of centered riding. Sally Swift developed this innovative system of riding, or teaching riding, so different from what was done traditionally, as most people were taught in a cavalry style pedagogy, more like training soldiers than training riders to be tactful and aware. Centered riding offers choices for how you think and move. A lot of this was taken from the Alexander technique and Feldenkrais and Tai Chi. We use each of these body awareness methods to enhance the rider's awareness of themselves and therefore in their riding. Here's a short exercise to demonstrate how you think can change the way you ride. If you look at the palm of your hand, you'll notice creases down the fingers. And if you try to bend your fingers at those creases, all right, you can. But if you look at the other side of your hand, where the joints actually are marked by different creases, and if you notice, especially the last one, the crease for the palm side is here, but the actual joint is all the way back here. Quite a big difference. So try thinking about moving your fingers at each of these joints. Now look at the other side, and the first joint is a little less cooperative, particularly with arthritic fingers. But the knuckle is a lot freer and a larger range of motion when you think about the joint being here. Now when you think about the joint at the knuckle being the joint, you can see how much range of motion I have, as opposed to if I try to bend it where that crease is. As big difference. And that's because our brain tries to tell us something and our body tries to oblige. And in that we get a little bit of stiffness, we get a little bit of impure movement. So if we know a little bit about our anatomy, which is one of the things Sally stressed, instead of thinking of a rider as kind of like this little doll here, and has all the joints in the right places, but they're a bit on the stiff side. One of the things Sally taught us was to ride from your bones. And she would always have her little skeleton here, and his name was Herman. Mine changes names with my mood. So, but if you know your anatomy and you know where your joints actually are and how they work, you will be able to move a great deal more. One of the more interesting joints to me is the shoulder, because there's no physical bony attachment for the shoulders to the body. The only attachment is at the sternum. The rest of the shoulder girdle rides in muscle and tendon. And once you know this, you can have a much different experience in moving. And that's one of the things we play with quite often. So, knowing your anatomy and how it should function. How many times when you tell someone, put your hands on your hips, and they end up putting them up here on where the gym teachers had us doing it. That's not your hip joint, it is the top of your pelvis. Your hip joint is much lower and deeper in. And if you try to bend from here or move from here, you're going to get a lot of stiffness and restriction. Whereas if you move from the actual hip joint, there's a lot of movement, a lot of smoothness there. The next clip shows how to think about how you're using your hands. This isn't exactly how one uses one's hands while you're riding, but it will show you how changing thinking patterns can change the effect of your hands on the reins. And think about taking the weight from your hand, putting it in your elbow. And you're going to do muscling first. Pull one hand forward, the other hand back, and notice the bend in the whip. All right, and even try just like clenching your jaw and do it. Clenching your toes. Okay, and now soften. And find your center over your feet. Think about that nice long tail. Taking the weight of your hand without cocking your wrist, keeping your wrist straight. You're going to allow your elbow heavy, your shoulder blade heavy, and see if you can move your hand from between your shoulder blades. So if the muscles between your shoulder blades, lighten the hand a little bit more. Allow the hand to float up like the hands had helium balloons in them. Notice when you come back, the hand goes down. Can you keep it level? The distance traveled isn't as important as how it travels. So, hands soft, soft eyes looking beyond. There, that was a little softer. And the weight of your elbow bringing you down, bringing your hand back. Hand is lighter. Helium balloons in the hand. And release your jaw. So soft eyes looking ahead, knees soft, tail hanging, hands are light. The weight is in your elbow, and any influence, muscular influence, is coming from between your shoulder blades. And see if you can look out. You're thinking real hard right now, and that's what we call hard eyes inwards. So look outwards and really focus, count the leaves on one of the trees. Keep your eyes looking outward. Yes. Let your center roll back over your feet. There. How has that changed, Jen? Better.
Better, yes. We just picked up
Hands a little lighter.
Yeah. That moment where she started not to think about it so much was the first time the whip wasn't bent.
Right. Think of everything as floating. If your forearms were resting on a gliding, like a slip and slide, all right? So the slip and slide's the same height from elbow to wrist, okay? And you're going to let that slip and slide let your arm slide along the slip and slide. And you're going to breathe and tell yourself a joke. There's no dip in the slip and slide there. Keep that hand floating up and your elbow dropping down. Good. That left hand is that your dominant hand?
Mm-mm.
No?
I think I overcompensate because I know it's not.
So see how much less you can do and let the hands float up. Keep the bend in the elbow, yep. And find your hip joints. Are they soft? Nope. There you go. Knee joints are soft.
That feels good.
And again, connect from between your shoulder blades. Looking out, checking out what kind of trees are out behind Jen. And release your jaw. All right. And talk to me.
What was interesting is when I felt the release the most had nothing to do with here and to do with here a little bit. When I just shifted underneath and kind of grounded.
Could you hang it instead of shove it? See, this is a lot between do and make versus let and allow.
Yeah. When I stopped thinking about this and just centered myself, suddenly this got a little softer. Whereas when I was actively trying to be like, Kate, just be softer, it just wasn't happening. And that's what you were seeing in my eyes of like, why won't this feel softer? And then when I kind of let go of actively thinking about this and just kind of like rotated to find my center lower, I found that to be a little bit more helpful than just making myself release, which I just learned is very hard to do.
Letting go is hard to do, isn't that a song? Jen, what did you notice, either as the horse or the rider?
I noticed it's fresher since we were just, since I was the horse, that I think that doing, like I'm going to do this, was because the whip was bent, like from the moment you took the contact, like the whip was bent. And then as you started to allow more, then things got softer, and finally there was that kind of perfect level of contact where there was contact, like it was holding the whip up. I wasn't having to hold it from dropping down, but I wasn't, like there were times where I was feeling like I had to pull back because you were pulling as you were, and even when you initially picked up. So I think, but then I could see, like, or I could feel like you just started to allow your hand to follow, and also that you weren't like pulling with your hand when you started to rotate around. You were doing it more through your body versus your muscles.
When I initially read Sally's book, I was so excited because she used so much imagery. And that's how I think. I think in pictures, and I think in whole things. And this was just so exciting to me. I couldn't wait to get to a clinic. And the closest one to me was about 3-hour drive away. But it was a little intimidating, as it was at the United States Equestrian Team headquarters in Gladstone, New Jersey. But I went, and I've never regretted it. I've made a lot of friends, and I've learned so much, and I still continue to learn from the base that Sally gave us. She would start every clinic with a lie down and then a shakeout. And you got to let go, and that was a big thing. Most people don't know how much they hold. And our shakeout is very demonstrative of that, shakes out all the little tensions and makes things so much easier. One of the other exercises she did was the unbendable arm, which is a real show of mind over body, where you don't actively activate your muscles, but you allow your body to choose which ones to employ to keep your arm from bending. I have a short video here of a couple of my students demonstrating and giving you feedback on the exercise. Actually, one of the girls is new to centered riding, had never done these exercises before, And her feedback was particularly interesting in a couple of the exercises we filmed. So have a look and we'll be back. Okay, so we're going to first go with the real strong arm here. So Jen is going to try to resist with everything she's got, and all those hay lifting muscles are really kicking in, and she's holding her breath, and oh yes. Okay, now she's going to shake out her arm, and she's going to find her soft eyes, breathing, centering, building blocks, release her jaw, and Kate's going to try to bend her arm now, and Jen is just not going to let her. She's going to think about allowing energy out her fingers and forward, and soft knees, soft eyes, the jaw is released, breathing, and off. Okay, so what was the difference for you, Kate?
I can feel her softness in the second one, but with more strength. I'd say I was actively trying to push her arm up harder the second time with way less activity in the arm.
Mm-hmm. What did you notice, Jen?
It was easier to resist her by focusing on more stability and core strength versus trying to put that energy into my arm.
And it's more of a change of thought, isn't it? How you're thinking about what you're doing.
It was secondary versus my thought was just all here and
right,
just letting the energy run through me and not focused on going to resist this push.
Yeah. Okay. I had a riding student who had been a field hunter, and he was taught that if he wasn't pushing down so hard that his feet turned numb, he wasn't doing it correctly. He was a real hard case, but he did learn eventually. I'm not sure how much of this he actually believed, but he kept coming back, so I guess things were working for him. One of our exercises is derived from a Tai Chi exercise that Sally called the buttress, where you take up the push and support through the angles of your body. Now, most time horses don't push on us when we're riding, so I have reversed the course, and I have a short video of two students where one is acting as the horse and pulling on the rider, and the rider using her joints and her balance to resist without leaning back or falling forward as the other person pulls. So I hope you get something out of that as well. Okay, so we're going to try what it's like to pull. So Kate's going to cross her arms, and they're going to hold here, and Jen's going to be thinking soft eyes, breathing, soft hip, really centered. Center over her feet, her heels extending backwards, and she's going to maintain, and Kate's going to let go and see, okay, that was better. Now, a little more breathing and try it one more time. Soft eyes, breathing from your bubbling spring up through your whole body and out the top of your head. Long heel, connect between your shoulder blades. Better, and release. There, that time you didn't lose your balance that much. Okay, and all right, so talk to me. You can start this time, Jen.
I think it was just hard finding that sweet spot where, and finding that sweet spot before things got ahead of me and I got on my toes. I was able to start correcting and start rolling back my center. And, but the times that I focused on being in that place before we started, it went better. But both times I felt grounded enough that when she let go, I wasn't going anywhere.
Right. What'd you notice, Kate?
I noticed in the beginning, I think she was kind of counterweighting the pressure by coming back a little bit.
Yeah.
And when she brought herself to the center, she was much more balanced, which I thought was interesting because I think my instinct would have been to counterbalance the pressure as well. But when she kind of softened and accepted it a little, I guess, I don't know if accepted is the right word, but kind of came forward, that's when I noticed her get much stronger.
Yeah, she got more imbalanced,
Yeah.
didn't she?
Yeah.
Much of conventional riding or riding instruction is do more, exert more, work harder, and you'll get more. Centered riding takes a little bit different approach where we ask you to do less, to let and allow, to listen and give space for the horse to respond. The challenges that riders have are believing that being so soft, or they say it's sloppy or messy, is actually effective. But if they give up and just give it a shot, quite often they'll be surprised to find out how much better their horses are going, and then they pass a mirror and they are absolutely shocked at how good and correct everything looks. Because people get the idea that tension is strength and it's part of who you are and your position in riding. I do a lot of asking riders to challenge their preconceived ideas, particularly in using their aids, leg aids in particular, where they always want to do more. And I ask them to think about, instead of the application of the aid as being what the horse will respond to, that the removal of that aid is really where they're going to get the response. And it offers a shorter, quicker, softer approach to the horse. And the horses generally are much more responsive when you do that. What convinces most riders about the effectiveness of centered riding is the difference in their horses. They find their horses more alert, more willing, and more listening to them. They get softer, they go more forward, and everything just gets better. So the horse is basically the gauge of how well centered riding really works. And I like to encourage people to think outside the box. In closing, I'd like you to embrace new ideas. Try out some of the things you're going to hear and learn about in this symposium. There's going to be a lot of information, probably something very different, and you don't have to take it all to heart, everything. I think of it as going shopping with a big shopping cart and putting a few things in it, and then you can go to the checkout counter and take out as much as you want, but take out a couple of new ideas and just play with them. See how they work for you. See how you can interpret and change it to work for you, or change your thinking to change your riding. Thanks for listening.